All right, welcome to another episode of Motor Mouth, brought to you by the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles. And we're standing here with our 1919 Daniels, which I'm sure, Dan, you will be informing us all about, right?
Yes.
Everything.
Well, a lot.
We'd be here a long time if we had everything about Daniels.
Yes. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we have several, so why are we at this one?
Well,
or maybe I shouldn't ask that.
We actually have 4 Daniels, okay? 3 of them are here in the museum exhibited, but there's so much stuff about these things. There's so many different storylines, and I've kind of thought about this for a while. How do we present this? And we're also creating signage for it. You know, we're improving the signs for it. And it's the same problem, is how do we do it, you know?
It's too much.
I mean, yeah, you can write about this car, but what about this part or that part, which is really interesting. So I am going to talk pretty much about this car and some other things, but for other episodes, is that what these things are called?
Yeah,
episodes. Okay.
We can do it
We're
again.
going to be talking about other components of this car that have great stories also. So, as Kendra said, this is a 1919 Daniels, made in Reading. So that's the Pennsylvania connection, the local connection. This is a Model C. It's also called a convertible coupe. And I wasn't even aware of that until this afternoon, because I had something else and I came out here to check it out. And I'm thinking, oh, it is a convertible coupe. Okay. Also, you can notice that, you know, there should be a roof here, a fabric roof. And also, we're going to look inside. You can see inside, it's a bunch of wood. Okay. This was the beginnings of a restoration years ago, and this is as far as it has gotten, and we just kind of left it here. Personally, I would love to see it finished, you know. So if anybody out there has like a lot of money and they can come in here. What?
Yeah. Spare time.
Spare time. I thought you
spare
said
money.
Spare dime.
You'll need a few dimes.
A lot of dimes. And but this is an interesting vehicle here. Yeah, you could see real brief the woodwork that is inside of this when I open the door, and that's pretty much how vehicles are made.
Yeah.
Pretty much, probably most of the vehicles in here.
Yeah, I'd say the lion's share here.
And it goes back to the carriage days. This had the wood framing, and then they would tack metal on it. And I was inspecting this earlier again. You can actually see where there's tacks or nails here to get this piece onto the wood framing inside. So, aluminum body on here, and it's made by Keystone. Let me get my notes here. Keystone Vehicle Company in Reading, which started out making carriages and coal wagons and stuff. Eventually, Daniels ended up buying them, and the 2 factories were actually across the street from each other in Reading, and you know, custom bodies and all that stuff. But that's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into that.
It is.
Okay. But anyway, the Daniels Motor Car Company went from 1915 to 1923. It was organized by 2 gentlemen. One was George Daniels, it was named after him, who was like a vice president in General Motors. And he left there and he didn't come to Reading. I think he was searching around. He wanted to build his own car and kind of fell in with Neff Parrish, which was a Reading guy. And Parrish was the founder of the Parrish Manufacturing Company that made automobile chassis, which this has, which a lot of vehicles in here have.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's a whole nother story too. And depending on the time, I might touch on that in a few minutes here. So in 1915, they begin producing the Daniels Model A. That was in the spring, and then after that, they just continued through various models and different updates. Most of the updates were just minor ones though. These cars always had a V8 in right from the get-go to the end, which is not many cars had V8s back then, like a handful. Not many cars had 8 cylinders back then either. So that was kind of interesting. The original Daniels for the Model A and B had a Herschel Spillman engine, which was made up in outside of Buffalo, New York. It was, I've heard 2 different things. It was a branch of the Herschel Spillman Carousel Company. And then I've also heard that it was like a brother of one of them and kind of moved over. So another show, okay? So anyway, beginning 1919, like such as this car, Herschel Spillman decided we're not going to build any more V8 engines. They were making 4 and 6 cylinders to the tune of 60,000 a year. Okay, I mentioned there was very few cars that had V8s. So why should they make a handful of V8s? And they had this business of 60,000 4 and 6 cylinder engines. So they dropped the V8. So what is the Daniels supposed to do? They went to Pottstown. There was the Light Machinery and Foundry Company in Pottstown, and they started making the V8 engines, and that's what ended up in these to the end. This car here does not have an engine in it, so we can't talk about that engine.
No.
But we do have the engine, and it's sitting over there about 30 feet. That's another show also, okay? So how many shows does that make?
I don't know. This is going to take us to what? The end of the year, maybe?
Maybe, maybe. Okay. So anyway, that was the engines on these. These cars were sold to a small group, or through a small group of distributors. We have some pamphlets, and they have a listing, and there's only like, 10 different distributors scattered in major cities around the country, okay? A lot of them went to the Los Angeles dealership because the Hollywood crowd liked these cars. These were expensive cars. The price for a car like this would be about $3,700, $3,800. Okay, in today's money, I don't know what that means. Okay, so $3,700, $3,800. A Model T of the same year cost $440. So we're talking, was that 8 times as much?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So you figure out the price of a inexpensive car today compared to this, and multiply by 8. Okay, so that's who had these. And it was interesting, I came across something that the following year, okay, this is in 1920, the price was 20% even higher. So they were going upwards, okay. I understand they had some problems with this Model C because they had the new engine, so they fixed the engine and they introduced the Model D, which that's what made the company really go. So there's only, these were rare when they were new. Okay.
Wow.
All right. This is an advertisement from 1917, but it's still talking about the Daniels engine here. The Daniels 8 appeals only to those dealers and buyers who are interested in an exclusive car for exclusive people. Of the very small, very select group of genuinely fashion-built cars, the Daniels 8 is, we believe, the most distinguished in excellence of performance and in beauty of line and appointment. So it's something, okay? The production of ready-made cars, like the production of ready-made clothes, is enormous to meet an enormous market. So this is talking to dealers here, okay? But the production of made-to-order cars is necessarily limited, exceptionally so in the case of the Daniels 8, because every Daniels car must be inspected by Mr. Daniels personally before it is permitted to leave our factory. This in itself assures a perfection of detail not otherwise obtainable and results in a distinctive variety of closed and open models not procurable elsewhere. Okay, so that's an advertisement from Automobile Topics magazine from back then. So we're talking very exclusive stuff here. Production in 1919 was between $200 and $300, and I read an article about this by a gentleman, Brooks Brierly, and he said that was economic for luxury car production. In other words, they tried to keep the production low like that, which is interesting because at the end of Daniels' production, they wanted to increase the production because they their stock was out there for the public and such, and they tried to do that. And between Neff and Daniels, one of them didn't like it, and they split, and well, there's no Daniels out there today.
No.
So anyway, with that exclusivity came low sales, resulting in very few existing today. So we know of, somebody told me 19 of them. I don't think there's that many of them. I've been in contact with a few.
Yeah.
I know there's one in Norway, which is cool since I'm Norwegian.
Yes.
Okay. Could be my Uncle Olaf.
And I was going to say, these are like popular in Scandinavia right now for some reason, aren't they?
There's a gentleman in Sweden has one, and I've been in contact with him over the years. His is really rough, and he's building this up, and it's a big project for him.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a few others. In fact, just last Thursday I saw an owner of two of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, at Carlisle. I saw him, but I didn't talk to him. Oh, there it goes. So,
they're out there, but there ain't many.
Yeah. Okay. So this car, again, is a custom-built car. This is made for Mr. H.J. Heinz of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Okay. If you're familiar with Heinz pickles, Heinz ketchup, and whatever else they have, okay, same people. Okay.
Yep.
It's custom built. As I said, it was a convertible coupe, so you had the solid doors here, you had the roof that folded down and things. It has a seat, and hopefully I can do this pretty swiftly here, but you can open this up and it's like a rumble seat back here, and it's only about that wide, so like two very thin children.
It's a tiny rumble seat for a big car.
Yeah, and there's another flap that opens up, but anyway, so that's that. And I was looking on a list of the so-called production cars of these, and none of them had a convertible coupe. So, you know, this is custom made. Okay, anyway, back to Heinz. I was looking at a booklet, and they had a page in it. It was an advertising booklet in your office, and it's the page that is titled Prominent Owners in Pittsburgh. Has a whole list of owners there and the companies they're involved with. There was an W.H. Robinson, who's the treasurer of H.J. Heinz Company, bought a car. And I'm thinking, I don't know how the company operated, but the treasurer could be the one signing the check.
Checks.
So this could be the car. So, yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that's that one. So again, and we could probably just keep repeating this about these cars being exclusive. It put them in the same class as like Packard, Peerless, Pierce Arrow, Cadillac, Locomobile. There's a bunch of others. And so these are something coming from Reading, you know, locally.
Yeah.
You know, so the building still sits there too, I believe.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you know, there's been talk about having a field trip up to Reading to look at that building.
Okay.
Well,
That's
I
the kind of stuff that we do.
I saw it on Google Maps like a month ago. There's
hopefully it's still
railroad
there.
tracks. Yeah.
One never
I think
knows.
both buildings, Keystone Vehicle for the body company, as well as the car company, is both there. Model C, 1 year only, 1919. I mentioned how they had problems with little problems with the engine, so they corrected them. Again, it was a brand new engine from Light Foundry down in Pottstown. They didn't have good sales back then too. So the engine is a 404 cubic inch engine, 45 horsepower, which is not a lot of horsepower from 404 cubic inch. Now, I came across the 45, but I also came across another figure of 39.2 horsepower SAE rating, also NACC rating. Now, I have to explain this a little bit. NACC stood for the National Automobile Chamber of Commerce. It was formerly ALAM, which is Association of Licensed Automobile Manufacturers. The horsepower, now I know there's formulas for figuring out horsepower, how much you raise 100 pounds a foot or something. I forget what it is. I must have dozed off in class for that one.
That goes beyond my brain capacity.
But this formula by the NACC or the ALAM, it was D squared times N divided by 2.5. You got that?
No.
So anyway, it was the cylinder bore in inches times the number of cylinders, divided by 2.5, which is a constant based on the average view of engineers to be fair and everything. Anyway, it had nothing to do with the actual power of that. It was just a mathematical formula. And those ratings were used for comparison purposes between different makes and models of cars, not actual horsepower ratings. And I thought that was interesting because I've seen these things. So there's 2 horsepower ratings for this again. There's the 39.2, which is the NACC rating, and then there's the 45, which I'm thinking is a real horsepower rating. So it's not really that much difference.
Yeah.
But,
well, that's confusing.
It's just, and I know in Europe, their horsepower ratings, I don't think they do it now, but they used to tax the vehicles depending on their horsepower ratings.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And I think it was sort of that same train of thought there. It's interesting figuring out the engines for this. Now I have here, Exhibit A here, I have...
You didn't know you were at a trial, did you?
1919 passenger automobiles listed, okay? This is from January of 1919, right here. And it's all technical stuff. Here, I have technical specifications of passenger cars, 1919. And this is from January 1920. So it was made a year different. And they're completely different.
Yeah.
One of them, the first one I mentioned has the Herschel-Spillman engine, the other one has the light engine. And anyway, and I'm sure you come across this, not in this kind of specs, but they say something here versus something here.
And then what do you believe?
Yeah, well, and that's part of the story.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with, people say, oh, you can't believe what you see on the internet because it's not true and this and that. Well, you're getting conflicting things, 100 plus years ago.
It's true.
So anyway, the engine on these things, I'm going to touch on this just a little bit more. It says, they had a little phrase for it, with just a little more power than you'll ever need.
Ooh, I like that.
Isn't that neat?
Just a little more.
Just a little bit more, yeah. So that's that. Again, I'll touch on the chassis of this, is the Parrish chassis. Parrish, somewhere along in their life, combined with Dana Corporation and Spicer Corporation. This, if it was in here, it would have a Spicer universal shaft, universal joints and the propeller shaft, okay? And I have to mention about the lights on this, and this is kind of interesting too, is these cars came with a light called the Warner Lens spelled L-E-N-Z, out of Chicago.
I like when they do that.
And you see an advertisement on your screen there, and you can see it has a pattern of, we'll say, little bubbles or bumps on it. And I've seen the real headlight before, not on this car, not on any of the cars we have here.
Yeah.
And they're really neat.
They are cool.
They catch your eye. And they had a thing, and this is out of an advertisement here, no law required an eccentric light. Remember that. If you use a glare light, you must dim it, or you must throw the glare rays down. But there are no restrictions on the glare-less floodlight which the Warner lens supplies. That has been decided by countless authorities. The Warner lens is legal everywhere. It has been accepted by every commission appointed under any state law. And the thing is, all those little bubbles kind of diffuse the light, and so it wasn't a glare.
I was going to ask you, what's the point of the bubbles?
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, it went everywhere. And I came across some things, and I think, no, it was just articles from back here, and they would have a list from New York State on the headlight lenses that were legal, and then have a list. And so, you know, they could just look. But there was a big thing with glare headlights, and I've read articles about that, how you make them anti-glare and so on and so forth. Okay, but they are not on this car.
No.
What is on this car is something called Clamert lens, C-L-A-M-E-R-T, and they were made out in Pittsburgh. I'm going to read this now from one of their advertisements, or actually a part of an article they had. Clamert lens has horizontal prisms. A new glass headlight lens known as the Clamert is being marketed. As is shown in the illustration, this lens has on the inside 11 horizontal prisms, which are set at an angle deflecting a light to the ground. On the outside surface, 6 concentric prisms graduated from the center diffuse the light and eliminate glare and give long-range rays. 3 upper inside prisms are designed to prevent ascending rays going up. Okay, the outside surface of the lens is smooth so that dust and dirt, snow, etc. will not collect. And it costs $1.50 to $2 each. And they, in 1920, were approved for use in New York State.
Aha!
Yeah, but it's just interesting, you know, every lens, you look through these old magazines and there's a lot of advertisements, all these different lenses, they all have their own ideas. And, you know, the lenses on here are kind of tucked in between cars and you can't see them here. But if you come to the museum, you just take a look at these, or take a look at any of these. They're all
I'm standing here looking
different.
at the cars around us, and there's all the lenses are different.
Yeah.
As I look around,
at that one
everything
there.
is different.
Yeah. So there's interesting different colors they had,
Yep.
and
I see
different
some
ideas here and
purplish
there.
tint to some.
Here's another thing I found out about this company, the Clamert company. They were the sole distributor of an item called the Tirril, T-I-R-R-I-L, headlight regulator. So you could regulate your lights. And basically what it was like a rheostat, so you could dim your lights gently.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I've seen it where they would have something where you could, there was a reflector in there and it would just make the lights go downwards. But this was actually a dimmer.
Wow.
You had a little thing, so.
High tech.
High tech, yeah, 1920 or 1919, whatever that was. Yeah. Now, there's a bunch of more stuff about this. I'm gonna sort of stop here, but there's a lot of stuff about the body. I'm going to cover that in another episode. The engine, you know, I mentioned the engine was from Light Manufacturing. We've touched on this before. They're a huge company. They had involved with all different things, and it's I don't know. It looks like a plate full of spaghetti.
It's confusing.
Confusing, yeah, it is.
Very.
Yeah, and so we'll dwell on that at another time, another episode.
Another edition.
Yeah.
Episode, edition.
And that's it. Yeah, I was going to talk about the wheels too, and that's a whole nother thing. But I'll leave that.
Don't worry, we got all this planned.
Oh yeah. So.
This will keep him busy for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's awesome. Thank you for joining us here this time on Motormouth, and come visit us at the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles. See the Daniels in person and the other 2 Daniels as well, which are very different. And
if I'm here, you can see this Daniels.
You can, and you can ask him more questions.
Yeah, stump Daniel.
That's right. Stump the chumps, they used to say on Car Talk.
Yeah. Yup.
So we'll see you next time, and stop in and visit. Thanks.